This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Billy Kohout. He is a New York-based recording artist. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, and arranger, guitarist, harp player, and session vocalist. With well over 2,000 live shows under his belt, he's no stranger to the stage, recording studio, or record industry. He has over 100 published works with various projects that are available on all streaming services. His main and primary band since 1987 has been GRIMM JACK. He's currently promoting their new 11-song album, Snake Oil Skullduggery, produced by Bob Stander. Their vast catalog with over 2 million plays that spans close to 40 years can be heard and is available on YouTube, Spotify, and all available streaming services. It's a pleasure to have you on, Billy.
Thanks, Catherine. I love to be able to spread rock and roll and talk about the trials and the tribulations of the last few decades. Always fun and always a pleasure to have you invite me. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I know it's been so interesting watching you. You know, I only know you probably the last 15 years. But, you know, just going back over and looking at your great website, which is www.GrimmJack.com.
Yeah.
They have a history tab there, and it just blows me away. Like looking at that
Isn't
history
that a
tab.
rip?
Oh my God, it's amazing. You should have a book out, Billy.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I've spoken to a couple of people and they're like, you should really write a book, man. So who knows what, you know, I'm still around, I'm still doing stuff. So something might come up in the future. You never know.
Oh, yeah. Well,
if you heard some rumbling, that's a lot of people rolling over saying, oh, my God, I hope not.
Well, it's funny, you know, there's one of the guys I interviewed on this show is a cartoonist, actually, and he's an artist, and he put together a couple of cartoon books that are featured with rock and roll people in them. And my friend David Reese from Accept and Bangla Choir, he's one of the characters in it. So,
cool
you know,
stuff, man.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's perfect, right? You got your own storyline, right? It's all done through history.
Well, you know, the name Grimm Jack is derived from that ideology. That was a cartoon, a comic book magazine.
Oh,
And,
wow. I didn't know that.
It was, I mean, back when Grimm Jack started, you know, let's go back a little bit. That was started by Jimmy Mack, and the drummer that isn't with us anymore. But it derived from that comic book, and the band actually got in a little bit of a problem with, so we had to change the spelling. And it's stuck, and it's been around a long time. And you know, I joined that show back in '87. '87, I joined, coming out of a really good. One of the biggest bands here on Long Island at the time, Guitar Pete's Axe Attack. And so, you know, I always liked the Grimm Jack boys. I was able to kind of spread my wings a little bit, become more of a writer. And here it is, you know, 4 decades later. It's like, my God, where did the time go?
I know, it's
and
incredible.
We're still doing it.
I know.
And we're still doing it.
Yeah, well, first of all, the picture that's on your website on the history page is just classic. I love it. It's the long hair. Everyone has that look, you know, the 80s look, which I love.
That's
But
a rip,
you know, I always say this. I always say, like, it's a blessing in disguise, but a lot of people still look like they did, you know, plus 40 years ago, you know, and
it could be worse.
yeah.
It could be, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. But you always have the same classic look. But I have to say, honestly, it was about, I don't know, maybe a little over a year ago, I saw you live in Long Island. And it was just like, it was such an incredible night. You don't just have stage presence, but you're a showman. I swear the minute you guys came on, the crowd just got up and like approached the stage and they didn't leave. They were like, you know, at the stage, you know, everybody was dancing and it was really a cool night. But you do that, though. You know, you work the microphone stand and you engage with people.
I steal from the best.
Yeah, but it's so natural, though, the way you do it, though. And
I mean,
your,
I say that. I say that jokingly, but, you know, we were growing up in the mid-'70s, you know, as young kids. late 70s, Aerosmith, Van Halen, when Van Halen first came out. I was just talking to somebody about that first Van Halen record. Now, I was at my friend's wife's 60th birthday, big bash. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of people, big pool party, a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of musician friends. They still are a lot of fun. This is not like, your normal 60-year-old, doing nothing. So we were talking about the early days when, and I said, that guy was the first guy. I could picture him coming up my street, walking up the hill, and he had the first Van Halen record. So that's where my mind goes. And I remember seeing that show, that first tour, and saying, I'm looking at David Lee Roth and I'm going, where do you go from here? I'm an aspiring musician. I want to sing. I want to get up there. I'm younger at the time, but I go, where do you go from there? I felt like, guys like him and, some of the earlier, guys that I liked, were so great, but he just kind of really, I thought, tipped the scales. That was like an unreachable thing. But you kind of find your way, if you stick around long enough, if you're true to yourself, if you stay out of trouble, you don't self-destruct. I've played over 2,000 shows, so there's a lot of experience and a lot of things you learn, and, I still learn. It's still a learning process for me. More in the recording studio and writing, but it's just it's been a wonderful ride, man, and I hope I have another 20 years to go. I'm not looking to hang it up anytime soon.
Oh, sure. How did you start out, Billy, though? I mean, were you like singing as a child or were you drawn to music early? How did this all start for you?
No, yeah, okay, that's a good question. I was really, as a younger, like early teenager, I had an older sister that's 5 years older than me. So I was 10, say, she was 15. She was already into that Woodstock, early 70s, late 60s kind of, music. Big posters on the wall, Led Zeppelin, Three Dog Night, Elton John, Black Sabbath, Beatles, Stones. So I kind of got my first listen through her. But I was like a baseball guy. I was like a jock. I wanted to play ball. I was really good at it. And I played up until my 16th kind of birthday. I got my license, and I really turned the corner, and I really started wanting to kind of get my feet wet into the music. I was always a fan. Now I wanted to play. I played guitar a little bit, so I really wanted to be a guitar player. My sister played guitar, and I ended up, one night I saw my friend's band play, and I said, I think I want to do that. So it was actually a band called Equinox, and they were playing at Hammerheads. And I snuck into the bar. I was like 16 and a half. I looked like I was 12. I got in, I don't know how. And I said, the guy's name was John Tito, the original guitar player over there. And I said, John, how long is it going to take me to do what you do so I can get up on stage and do that? So he kind of said, well, you got to get a teacher, and you got to study with the teacher, and you got to find a band, and you got to rehearse and practice, and hopefully you'll be good enough. And I'm already old already, I'm thinking in my head. So I got in my car, I drove home, and halfway home from Hammerheads to where I was living in Comac, I had this revelation. I said, I think I'm going to sing because I think it'd be quicker. And I did. Within maybe 6 months, I auditioned for my first band, and I basically got the gig, and I never turned back.
Oh,
That
wow.
was it.
But I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, you really can sing. So, I mean, that's more than a lucky strike for you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Did you ever do any things in school, like singing in school plays or anything like that?
No, I was, I was a really shy kid in like high school. I really wasn't like, that whole acting thing, and that wasn't my thing. I was kind of hanging out with the guys drinking beer, and by 16, I left the whole high school thing behind, and I was in the city. My first club that I went to in the city was Max's Kansas City. And I remember looking at these guys, and everyone looked like Keith Richards. And again, I looked like I was like 12. And I said, I need to get here. I need to figure out how to get here. So that first band I joined, we were doing, the typical covers of Judas Priest, the Sabbath. And within 6 months, I said, guys, I wrote a couple of songs. And by that time, they weren't even on guitar. They were just me singing, to a lyric sheet that I wrote. And I would sing it to the guitar player. And, I would say, no, I think it's the G. I think you're playing the A. Go to the G. And I had a little bit of, knowledge on the guitar, but I wasn't playing. And we started writing originals. So my first gig with that band doing originals and covers was Good Times Comac opening up for the Good Rats. Packed house. It was just a crazy experience, for my first show. And Peppy came up to me and he goes, you got to just keep on writing originals. He goes, you got a great voice. I was a little kid. And he goes, just keep going. Don't give up and don't let anybody tell you to keep playing these covers, because everybody was doing the top MTV kind of top 40. That was when MTV was just coming out. So, I just worked it. I just kept on going, and I never gave up, Kat. It was my first waking moment. It was the last thing I thought about before I got to bed, and it was number one. It was above relationships, family, job. It was an obsessive, compulsive dream and tunnel vision. I wouldn't let anything stop me. And, there was a lot of changes, a lot of different musicians. And, I just kept on going.
That's
And I
incredible.
did come close. I did come close a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's pretty incredible that even at a young age like that you wouldn't give up, because, one or two things to it, someone in their, early teens or, late teens, they could just turn the corner and say, forget this, So I think that's pretty amazing that you were able to, push through like that.
The concert that changed me was 78. And I saw Ted Nugent play at Madison Square Garden. I had front row center seats. Nothing, anyone was sitting down. And he came swinging off the vine, and I saw something that I said, man, if I could grab a little piece of what that guy is projecting off the stage, and if I could grab a little bit of what the crowd is throwing back to him, I got that even as a young age. They call it the transference of energy back and forth from entertainer to crowd and crowd back to the entertainer. I got it. And I said, that was what really changed me. That was when I said this is what I need to do. I need to get there. And, that was my driving force. He was like that when I saw that show, amongst many others after that. But that was really the real first one that set it off for me.
Well, Ted Nugent, I mean, just him alone. He's always been a firecracker since the beginning of his career. Yeah. So that's pretty wild. Wow. So do you remember making your first recordings, just going into a studio environment? Because studio environments, every studio is different. I've been in a lot of them, but every studio has its own vibe with the people that are there. Yeah. So what was your first experience like?
Okay. My first recording experience, I'm going to touch base a real light on this, and you're going to crack up with it because we were just talking about a little technical stuff. So I'm playing a guitar. I'm writing some acoustic guitar. I'm living home. I'm still, in my teens. And I would play into a cassette recorder and then get that part down and then play that cassette recorder into another cassette recorder and sing. So I was bouncing tracks without even knowing what I was doing on a very primitive level. All right. So that was my first experience of, I can't wait to get into a real studio and do this. So now we fast forward a little bit. It's like 87. I just joined GRIMM JACK, and they are ready to get into Sabella Studios here on Long Island. Mike Sabella was pretty big back then. He's still doing it. So, you're recording on a Neve console. I knew what that was. 2-inch tape. I knew what that was, a Studer tape machine. I said, wow, man, we're doing the real deal. And 6 months into the band, I did the first recording. It was, I believe it was an EP, Partners in Crime. And I loved it. I could not get enough. I couldn't wait. It was just, I couldn't wait to just do it again. I never wanted to leave. I loved it, everything about it. I still do.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too because, when they say like that's a take or whatever, I know a lot of singers that I know, they're never really satisfied. They're like, let me do it again, let me do it again. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. But going back to those days of 2-inch tape, even doing edit work back then was so much more
Mhm.
complicated than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a moment. So, we would be, you know, we would rehearse 3 nights a week. It was always a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. I did that for years. And then people started getting jobs, they started getting married, and then it kind of eased up a little bit, or we get rid of them. But I did that 3 night a week rehearsal, plus playing out. So we were well seasoned. I'll speak for myself. You could sing on key, and you were good. You knew your parts. So I would go in there and I wanted to get this thing the second take. I'd go through one take, maybe two, but I didn't really want to beat the thing to death. I wanted that energy, that excitement, and I wanted the voice to just be as excitable as I was doing it on the first or second take in the studio. No auto tune. There wasn't any of that nonsense, man. You either could sing or you couldn't. You were on key or you weren't. And if it was really that questionable, the producer would say, "All right, let me try and punch it in." So the punch in. But you know, back in those days, you had to be together. Today, forget about it. You don't even have to sing remotely close, and they make you sound like you know what you're doing. It's really bending that artist word to a point where it's a questionable title.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's why I think live performances are so telling,
Yeah,
because if you sound live like you do on your album, then you know what you're doing.
yeah, I think you need to, and I think today, it's kind of a crazy catch-22 because people go out there and they make these records, and you go and you see them live, and they're not even doing it live; they're lip syncing it. And I'm talking about like a major kind of entertainer. We'll call them that because they can't sing. But in today, like Grim Jack goes out there. If you're off, you got everybody with their phones. They're doing FaceTime, or they're not FaceTime. Live on Facebook, or they're posting it. So that was a little trying. In the beginning, and I said, you know what? Well, what do what we do. Just get up there and let it fly. And there's very very few times that I go, that's a little clunky, but you know, even the best, I can listen to some Zeppelin stuff and even some Stone stuff, and you have your moments. You're not perfect, but you're
Oh,
not
sure.
terrible. You
Yeah.
can't be horrible. If you're horrible, maybe it's time to hang it up.
That's amazing. Wow. So, during when you started doing all your recordings, were you starting to travel more or doing more, touring around?
Yeah, yeah. No, what we were doing. Um, GrimmJack, our big record was in 1990. It was the Jailhouse Tattoo record. It was a 6-song EP. It really did well for us. Um, we were the first unsigned band who was on our own label, which we still have, Sin City Records, and it was guys from Ryko Disc helped us master it, put it together, did some artwork for us, and released it. So we had a picture CD when nobody else had that. They had tapes, so it kind of propelled us into this new direction where I think people took us as more of a signed, polished act than our competition, we'll call it. So we managed to do really well on college radio, and we started touring with that record. And we were playing up and down the East Coast, and then we would venture out into Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia. And we did that loop about 4 times. And we gained a lot of success, a lot of fans I still have to this day from those early West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio days. And we were following up like Guns N' Roses. The Guns N' Roses would play one week, and we would follow up the next week in the same venue. We except we were playing like um, I think we were doing 2 sets back then. We weren't just doing the one set. But we played. we played at that place that Dimebag Darrell got shot and killed,
Oh,
which
wow.
was just an amazing thing. You know, when I read that, I called the guys up in the band when it happened. I said, guys, we played that place. So, you know, we were kind of on that same wavelength, that tour schedule, as a lot of bands that were a lot bigger than us at that time. And it just kind of propelled us and kept us going. You know, by 93, I'm sorry, by 91, 92, we were ready to sign with MCA, and that's a whole nother story. But you know, we were their next band up on their New York roster.
Oh, wow. This is so interesting. Yeah, it's pretty incredible though when you talk about touring and the band schedule, that you would come in after, Guns N' Roses had played. And then
Yeah,
you think, wow, I'm standing on the same stage with this, like it's almost like a personal experience, not just knowing that the fans had been there the week before for them and now they're showing up
yeah.
for you. But it's
You know what, Kat? I think the coolest part of that was when we pulled up. You know, Guns N' Roses had $1 million, tour bus. We had you know, a $10,000, but not even that, school bus. And so like the budget was completely different, right? On so many different levels, but the people were wrapped around the building. I mean, how cool is that?
yeah,
And
that's
we
amazing.
we yeah, we had just brought a piano player in when we were doing the second leg of that tour, and he goes, "Wow!" He goes, "Who's playing over there?" And I looked. I said, "That's for us." And I watched the guy turn white. He was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah." So like we were all. I felt we were just on the brink. We were like almost there, and it was just a matter of time. Um, and it was a good time to play rock and roll, but inevitably, what happened in 91, 92? The Seattle scene broke,
Oh, yeah, you're
and
it.
it
And that changed the
changed it.
whole map of music,
It
actually.
it
Yeah, with
it
grunge. Yeah.
it changed it. Our deal fell apart. The guy that was signing us got replaced, and we were in a tailspin for quite a few years. And it took us another 4 or 5 years to get another shot. But you can't get overly discouraged, and you got to just keep on going. I mean, if you don't have the love for it, and if it doesn't move you every time you do it, every song that you write, um, I don't suggest to stay in it, because it's gotta work for you on some kind of internal um, level. You got to get that deep satisfaction out of it, and I still do. I still love
Yeah.
it.
Well, it's interesting, though, the way you talk about it because, it in some way worked like it was feeding you in your life. You needed it almost like nourishment to keep going. And that's when you have something and that it's a passion. But that when you speak about, the whole Seattle, the West Coast, the whole grunge era, that changed a lot of people's careers.
Yeah.
Even bands that were already signed. It really kind of changed a lot in regards to that. So just knowing that and knowing what happened with you, did you try to change your style of writing or the music that
we
came out after that? Did you try to change it or you
we
stayed true?
we did. So during that whole, we were showcasing for MCA for about 8 months. We played for them twice. I think one time, at least one time at CBGB's. Um, a couple other places in East Village, and then a bunch of times at this place called Beowulf, which is down in Alphabet City. And then the last two times we played for them about 8 times. The last couple of times were at SIR Studios in Manhattan. And if any musician is listening to the show and they've ever done that SR thing, it is the most sterile, difficult thing to do, because you're in a sound room on a big stage with nobody there except four executives sitting in a chair. And you bring some food and some drinks for them, and you got your main crew with you, but you're playing, and you got to play like you're doing a live show. So we did that twice. They loved us. and we had a bunch of member changes through this ordeal. You know, you sometimes you lose some of the family, you know, for personal decisions. They decide to bail out, and it's never a good time, especially when you're showcasing. But after that whole thing kind of fell apart in our faces, we changed, and I did a big sweep of personnel, and the band briefly was called Rotten Apple. We were playing less shows in Manhattan. We were having a hard time getting gigs, but we changed. We became a little heavier. The guitars became heavier, and it was still GrimmJack, but just a little more grittier and just a little more heavier, I'd say. You know, and it propelled us into the next. We got flown out to Denver. This guy Barry Fay, that flew us out. We showcased for him, and there was 3 labels. Atlantic was one of them, and we did a Friday and Saturday night playing this newer stuff. It was an hour and 15-minute show. I met him Sunday, and he said, "Congratulations, I have a deal for you." He goes, "We'll go through which one is the best. We have offers." And I said, "Great." I said, "So," he goes, "but I do have some bad news." I said, "What's the bad news?" He goes, "I'm going to tell you not to take it." And I'm looking at him, I'm looking at my band, and I'm going, "What do you mean? Why wouldn't I take this, man?" And he goes, "I think you should just wait for the Seattle thing to just, it's still too hot, man. It's still too hot." He goes, "I think you're going to get shelved. And if you get shelved, you're not going to last. The album's never going to come out. You're going to lose your rights for your songs for a while." He goes, "Just keep on writing." He goes, "I'd like to work with you." He goes, and let's just be patient." And, you know, he died a few years later, so that's the end of that story. But Barry Fay was a big promoter, and it was a pleasure to get a chance to work with him for a short time. But that was, you know, relatively after that first Seattle, you know, explosion. You know, he wanted to just have us hold tight for a little while.
That's interesting, that story. So, in retrospect, do you think in his, in his position, he was making the right call?
I speak to a few members about this. The guy who was playing drums for us at the time, Bo Matheson, which you remember Bo, I think. You know, man larger than life, was dedicated and loved it as much as I. You know, you know, we spoke about it, and I said, in retrospect, I probably would have taken it if I had to make the decision again today. But you know, you're dealing with Barry Fay. If you Google and see what this man was really about and who he was and how big he was and the people he worked with, you know, he was kind of a tyrant. But you know, you got to respect the man's position and his knowledge. So you know, do I regret it? Yeah, I guess I do. You know, on some level, I don't think it would have hurt me if I would have taken it. You know, maybe would have recorded the record in a, you know, a real class A studio, and maybe it wouldn't have come out, but maybe it would have. You know, maybe during that recording process, we would have met somebody, and it would have changed the trajectory of where we were in this very kind of iffy landscape of where music was at that point. So it is a little bit of a haunting thing when I think about it and I talk about it to some of my bandmates. But you know, you can't go back. You just got to keep going. And
Yes.
here we
Well,
are.
I
Yeah.
think every experience in its own way is a lesson. You know, it's interesting, when I over the years have watched these shows that have popped up on the TV like American Idol and The Voice, and you
Yeah.
see how competitive it really gets. And there's many times, I mean, when the shows came out very early on, I would jump off the sofa and I'd be like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, and one of them was Daughtry. I remembered them not
Yeah, I
putting,
remember
I was
seeing
like,
that.
wow. I was like, Daughtry? I was like, wow. And he's still going.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
it really is reflective of what you said. Like, no one, if you're really that passionate, no one's going to derail you on doing what you enjoy doing. And it's also sometimes someone else's decision. So even though he was presenting you a choice, in some respect, he wasn't really presenting a choice. Because what I've seen, especially in the military, when someone in a position of authority recommends something, you say, well, I should take it, or maybe I shouldn't take it. And then you look like what's going to go on behind the scenes. Like, so if you go against someone, they may spread the word for you not to be supported in some way. I mean, it's very political in a lot of positions and a lot of career fields. So even though you may have gone against it, or perhaps, rewrite history in some way, it may not have worked out well, only for the fact that it would be maybe going against the grain or what you were advised.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I never planned to stop working with Barry. That was the thing. So again, and you don't want to hound the guy. You're not going to call him every week, but you stay in touch, and he's got your catalog. He's interested in the band. We were at his house. I mean, this wasn't like this little, through a third or fourth party. The guy invited us into his personal home and took his time out of the schedule to fly us down there. And when I really understood what was going on there, I said, I have to respect his opinion. And okay, so we'll work, in the future. And I thought we would end up solidifying something in a couple of years. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to just continue to write new stuff. And but here we are. I have another record that I've done so much after that whole Barry Fay incident. The Rooster Band came out of the ashes of GRIMM JACK.
That's the thing. The Rooster. Yeah. So talk about that. I love that.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really cool thing. When that Barry Fay thing kind of fell apart, again, we're getting a little older now in this business, and we're watching the scene really change. Now, you still don't have the computer thing going on here. You don't have the internet. You don't have what we have today. So to get your material out there is very difficult. This is pre-95. So that band that went to Denver became Rooster. It really, at that point, was Rooster. We were that Rotten Apple band for a very short time. So we toured with we went to Denver with that Rooster catalog, and that Rooster lineup, I should say, and the GRIMM JACK catalog, and that's what we were known as. So after that thing fell apart, another couple of member changes. Couldn't find the guitar player that left, and couldn't find another one to replace him, so I was left with one guitar player, piano, and I needed that second guitar player. We started becoming more. The Rooster sound is a big departure from a GRIMM JACK sound. It was more like a Allman Brothers, a Leonard Skinner. The piano became a real barrel house honky-tonk piano, like early Faces, Rod Stewart. This is 94, 95. So I start playing guitar to pick up the rhythm. So my lead slide guitar player, my Dwayne Allman kind of guy, could really have free range on slide open tune guitar. Now the band really changes direction. So now it's Rooster. The GRIMM JACK thing is on a hiatus. The catalog is out there. Whatever will become of it, what will become. But the Rooster thing is really in full tilt. We record a record. The record does really well. We subsequently win the Good Times Long Island Best of the Fest contest that they used to have. I don't even know if they still do that. It was a long time ago. So all the unsigned original bands out on Long Island, we win that. So now we're recognized as the #1 New York original band, and we start playing. We're playing all over. We're playing 3 nights a week, and we're gathering up some steam. And just like everything else, the band, it just imploded from the inside out. We were flown out to not flown out, but we had to go out to Memphis to support the music scene and represent GRIMM JACK. And we're playing on Beale Street in Memphis. Kenny Wayne Shepherd is in the audience, and he comes up to me after the end of the show, and he said he wants a CD. I signed a CD. The kid was like 16. He just broke.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, so like we were always on that fringe of like just break it. I think if we had the internet as big as it is today, we would have went somewhere with that lineup. And I think at that point everyone just got really frustrated, and we needed a long break. And I took a little step back. I didn't forget about it, but I cooled it for a little bit. And you know, brings us into Grim Jack getting back together in 2010, and we just started right up where we left off. The
Yeah, it's
catalog,
great.
Kathleen, it has like I think 2 million plays on the catalog at this point.
I know. It's interesting though because when you go to the history page on your website, it shows all of this. But it's curious to know like your style of playing. The longer you guys played, even though your members were interchanging all the time, did you
Yeah, there
find
was
that
a
you were
lot.
kind of creating more of a, like I call it a vibe? Like when I see you live, I mean, you have like a little bit of like, it's not country western, but there's like a little bit of like rockabilly to it in some way.
Yeah, I think you have. Again, it's well, I think you can continue a vibe in a band through decades and through a vast catalog of material, um, if you maintain the same singer. It's very, very. It has a little bit more glue to it. So that I think made it feel a little more. So the way the thing morphed is, as the years went on, it really became my project because there wasn't anyone original in the band really after '93. It was really, I took the band over and everyone else was new, and then we changed the name in '94, and then it became the Rooster thing. So and it morphed. So my influences, came from that uh, rhythm and blues, country, um, just straightforward rock. When Kane came into the tail end of GrimmJack, he brought in this whole southern open tune slide guitar. So I started playing a lot more harmonica, and yeah, it tended to just morph into this more greasy, southerny rock and roll thing. That Rooster record is just it's still to this day I love it.
I love it too. Yeah.
It's got a special journey. And the way we started that was we were looking for a drummer. So Kane and I, just to keep him, I didn't want to lose him because I thought he was a very special, unique player. And I never played with an open tune slide player. We played 5 different tunings. So I said, listen, we're going to go into the studio and we're going to record 3 or 4 songs, maybe 5, just acoustically, me and you. And we'll do the vocals, do some back vocals, and so even if it's just me and you, we'll add a piano, we'll add the bass, but it's not going to have any drums on it. And maybe we'll do half a record with that, and when we get a drummer, we'll do the rest. And I was writing most of the material at that point, and that's when it really took off. So, and I still have a lot of that. I still bring a lot of that into everything I do. It was really when I really came out of my whole shell in terms of, well, it's my band now and I'm doing the whole thing. So that's what I said. That learning process never stops. It never stops, man. I pick up stuff every day. I just was listening to a Steely Dan song and I said, wow. I said, that's just a really cool thing that they just did there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because, being the most, of the band as you, doing the writing. I mean, not just the lyrics, but you're writing, the songs. So where is your inspiration coming from? Like other, you know,
well, I mean, I listened to, back in those days, it's not all my writing by any stretch of the imagination with Grim Jack at this point. Jimmy is a very big part of that writing process, Jimmy Mack. Um, and it's become, especially with this latest record, not even the one that we're pushing now, but we have another one that's not even recorded yet. We're still working on it. It's become more of a band collaboration. But my influences, everyone from Janis Joplin to Howlin' Wolf to Muddy Waters to Dwight Yoakam. There's your rockabilly influence. Um, to let's go deep. Hank Williams, Buck Owens, Tammy Wynette. I mean, I love those artists. Those, I could listen or watch some of those old recordings, the old videos or old recordings, and it's just there's something very magical about it, something very pure about it. That I'm not writing country music, but I think some of it comes out in that writing process, which the older I get and the more open I get to that creativity, I can honestly tell you, I don't know where it comes from. There are some times where I can be sitting down and a whole song will pour through me, and I pick up a guitar, and within 40 minutes, it's out and it's done. And I just, I thank, the universe, like the God of my understanding. It's coming from somewhere. You know, I'm not a prodigy. I'm not a Berkeley or Juilliard graduate. I'm a rock and roll singer and I'm a music fan. So for something to pour through me, and you know, uh, some of the stuff really is for me, and I can only speak for what I think about it. Is pretty moving. So
That's an
I
amazing
think
experience, you know?
it is, and I think that's the reason why I keep doing it. It's like I don't want to get into anything really out there, but it's like an outer body kind of thing that happens. So
Well, I'm on the same line as you with a lot of this, but it's interesting. Have you ever had any dreams of like lyrics or dreams like writing a
I did.
song or anything?
I I'll tell you a real quick story. Um, so the early Rooster days, which is you know um, we'll call it pre-Rooster, the ending of Grim Jack into the morphing of a Rooster. Um, 1990, I would have the guys come over my apartment and we would do 4-track recordings. Okay. And it was really the building blocks for that first Rooster record. I even have some of those old tapes, and I listen back to them and I go, wow, they're pretty close to how they ended up. Just me in my living room with a 4-track machine. But I came home. I was married at the time, and it was about 5 in the morning, and I get home, I get to bed, wake my wife up, and she kind of gives me the grunt thing. "Hey, I'm home 5 o'clock in the morning." I'm like, yeah, no. One of those nights, not easy being married to a musician. So 5 o'clock, I get up at 7 o'clock. I wake up and I'm laughing. I'm dreaming. I'm laughing. I wake up and she goes, "You're up at 7 o'clock." She's having coffee and reading the paper or something. And I said, "Hold on, just." I pick up a guitar. I'm in the living room. I start strumming. I'm writing. I got my cassette player, and the song called "Cigarette Soup" came completely out of me in 10 minutes. It was done, written, and she's looking at me going, "What is that about?" And I said, "I just wrote this in my dream." And I said, "I'll tell you the whole thing when I wake up. Give me a couple more hours." But that came just like that, and it was just amazing. And yeah, it was,
That's really something to
yeah,
remember, you know? It's usually when those things happen, like I had a dream that I was going to have this radio show. And I always
yeah,
tell people, like especially being clairvoyant, like I know like all right, I'm being shown this for a reason, But I really think that it also takes, there's like a level of free will. Some people wake
yeah,
up from a dream and they're like, that was just a dream, and they move on with life. But when you actually take that and you say, okay, I have to follow this, I don't know why, I have to just follow this down to, you actually picking up the guitar and, writing that song. So that's pretty amazing. I had heard, I guess it's Richard Marx was in the past year touring with Rick Springfield, and Richard Marx said he was in the back of a tour bus, and he was just laying down sleeping, and he had a dream of this song, and he literally woke up and was like, I have to write that down. And it turned out it was like one of his biggest hits. So, and it's interesting because, he said, if anyone's wondering, that never happened again. It was like a one-time thing for
yeah,
him. But
yeah,
but I think it's so interesting that whoever has the dream that acts on it really has a life-changing event. It's not that, what's the outcome of the dream, but that you took action on something that you were shown. And I think that's the piece of it that brings out like you to a different level of belief.
Somebody told me a long time ago, thoughts become reality. So think good ones.
Oh,
Don't
that
think
100%.
bad ones. Now that's again, you're up there in the ethereal ether of this place that we're a part of. But it makes sense to me. It's not as easy to do as the words are, but you try and come from a good thought in a good place and manifest it into something. The writing process to me is just a very as the older I get, it becomes a freedom. I don't sit down and write. I've done that before, and I've had a lot of success with it. The Rooster record, I wrote 70% of that in two nights. It started out with one song in my living room, and it gravitated into the kitchen at 2:00 in the morning, and I stayed up for another 24 hours, and I had like seven of those songs written in that time period. That's never happened to me again either.
That's so great. Wow. That's like within
yeah, and I was
24
like,
hours.
yeah. I mean, I never ever had that, and you know what? I'm not going to say that, um, I felt like I was the great I am. I felt like I was part of something larger than myself, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't want to think about it too much. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't like high or anything. It was just me doing what I love to do, playing guitar and writing stuff down. And so, yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. Maybe the great ones, it does. But listen,
But
I've
I
been,
think it's being channeled through you in some way. When things come at you that fast and furious, it's almost being channeled through you.
and another thing, what I learned through that is I really don't like to take credit and say this great song I wrote. I'm very honest and I'm open, and I say, well, yeah, I mean, obviously I wrote it down and I'm singing it, and I have to take credit for it. It's on a copyright, on a legality, but I have to be honest with you. It's no hocus pocus, and look at me, I'm this you know spiritual guru, but I share it. It's just I'm grateful, and I don't know. I try and live and be grateful for these things, and not be the great I am.
Oh, sure. But
It's
you
another
are a
thing. It's another
spiritual
thing.
guy. You are a
I,
spiritual
I,
guy, though.
I have been, listen,
Yeah,
Catherine, I've been through the war and back a couple of times.
that's
I'm
right. I
happy.
think a lot of us
I'm on.
are. That's right.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm 6 feet above the ground, not under, because
Exactly.
there's many times where I could have been 6 feet below. So I definitely see things, and I miss my friends that never got the opportunity to say, wait a minute, this is not somewhere where I should be going. I'm causing a lot of damage here, and I'm going to hurt myself. So, thank God I was able to recognize it, and through a lot of hard work and a lot of good people. Again, not me, did not come from me. I made the decision to shift the perspective, right?
Oh,
Move a
sure.
muscle and
That's right. That's
change,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
that's
Again, I'm
amazing.
fortunate. I'm fortunate enough to be, to be in my sixth decade, and I feel better now than I ever did, despite the
Yeah.
physical things from a bad accident and all of that. So
Yeah, but listen,
it's
you're amazing. Tell us about this latest album that's coming out.
yeah. So this Snake Oil and Skullduggery, it's a little play on the studio, right? It's like I came up with the album title and the artwork. I did all of that, and before the record was even all the way done. So it was my first time really going into the studio, heavy Pro Tools, and a guy who knew what he was doing. He's got a list of accolades a mile long. Bob Stander. He's an amazing, amazing engineer, producer, and we gave him free reign to just produce. So, listen, I mean, in the end, I'm going to say, listen, I really don't like that. You got to change that. I don't like that idea. But for the most part, that's all him. There isn't produced by GrimmJack. It's produced by Bob. And I am so excited and happy that we found him, and this piece of work is out, one song at a time. So the Snake Oil and Skullduggery pretty much came from, it's like sleight of hand, where what you can do in that studio, you have to be really, really careful, because you can take your band and your sound, your craft, and this thing that I like to say is be true to yourself. And you could all up, and you could say, let the machine do it. So the sleight of hand is at a very minimal um, amount of the potion that's mixed into the recipe, because I didn't want to go overboard with it. I still believe you got to get in there and sing on key, make sure you're at the top of your game, or don't go into the studio yet. You got time. Make it right within you and the band, and the magic will come out. So this record, we have 5 songs that we've released, and we drip one out every couple of months on Spotify. It's on every streaming network available. The 5 songs have over 500,000 plays on them, which is an incredible
That is
amount of
terrific.
plays.
Yeah,
For a
exactly.
band
Yes.
with hardly any kind of push, there's nobody pushing me. I mean, people hear us and they like us and they play us and they push us along. So if it continues, the record will have 1 million plays, which is crazy to me.
That's
That's like a lot
awesome.
of.
Yeah.
I mean, for a guy playing rock and roll in my age group bracket, what's there, it's not an easy feat to do. Look on somebody else's plays and see what they're getting. So again, very grateful. We have another one coming out in, I think, August 7th, something like that. It's called Waiting. A real cool rock and roll, kind of AC/DC, GrimmJack cross mix of rock and roll. I love it, and a video to follow. And we still have another 5 songs to go. I believe that's an 11-song record. So, and the one that is going to really, I think, throw everyone for a loop is a song called "Devil in Her Veins." Is like 7 minutes and 4 seconds long.
Really?
It's like my swan song. I wrote it with
That's like Led
Joey
Zeppelin.
Master.
The
Yeah,
long
it's
songs.
and you know what? When I sing it, it seems like it's a 3-minute song. It's got this magical journey. It's got a great story to it, and I think a lot of people are going to identify with it that come from our part in rock and roll where we grew up in, and what used to move us. And it's not done a lot. People don't do that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So
What is the
yeah.
story behind that? Are you able to speak of it before it's released?
Yeah. Well, Joey came up to me and he had an idea, and he played it for me. He had a vocal on it, and it wasn't exactly the way it ended up. It was, I'll call it close. So he gave it to me, and I started playing with it. And he had the chorus written, and I think maybe the first line. I didn't even think the first line. I think he might have just had the chorus written. And I just started. For some reason, it took me, again, one of these things that just happened. I just let myself go. I got lost in it, and it's just about a fictional person that is just having a hard time with um, the world she's in, and she tries to escape through the drugs and alcohol, and it's not working, and it tells her story. So we haven't released it yet. I don't want to tell the ending, and
Oh,
I want to do a
sure.
big. I want to do a really big video on it. But as I sing it, I can actually feel the story around me, and
Oh, yeah. But it's so
it's
important, Billy, because what's going on nowadays. I mean, I speak to so many people, and so many families are being affected by what's
yeah,
going on with fentanyl and all of just these innocent killings, I call them, because they don't know
yeah,
what they're taking, so there's
no,
no intention to that, and then they end up in the afterlife, and it's just completely
yeah,
tragic. So the timing of these songs and the meaning of these songs is so important. Whenever someone can hear about someone else's story, or literally live through someone else's story, like in the impact of a book or lyrics or a song or all of
Yeah.
that. It just makes such,
You know,
a profound meaning.
through my own journey, and so many friends that I've lost, and so many friends I continue to lose. So now it might not be my friends, but it's their children. I know two that have lost their sons, and they were in their early to mid 20s, to ODs, or that are in jail, due to alcohol as well. It's an insidious thing that will grip you, and you better have a way out because it doesn't want you to leave. So I did a song with Rooster called Road Less Traveled, and I wrote that one in '93 with my piano player, and that one came together relatively quick, and it's really about that whole thing. And that song is always available for free download on Reverb Nation. It's on the Rooster page. I put it on my page all the time, and it's really, listen to the song if you're having a hard time, and you might get something out of it. It might show you a way that's better than where you're at. So yeah, I mean, I've walked the walk and I talk the talk. There's a better way. There's a lot of people that they're still caught up.
Yes.
I can only
Yes.
say, for myself, I've never done anything better under the influence of any drug or alcohol. I do everything better sober. Everything, whether it's talking to somebody on the phone, whether it's picking up a guitar, whether it's singing a song, whether it's putting gas in my car, exponentially better. And when you get, that clarity, that's the gift. The gifts keep coming. So, I don't dwell on it. I don't write. I'm not a poster boy for it. I help people that I feel, they come to me. I can guide them where they might need to go. And there are songs that do have a little bit of that message in there because, when you do write, there's a part of you that kind of filters in. This new record that we're gonna start working on. This is the one that's gonna precede Snake Oil and Skullduggery. Has a little more of that in there. For some reason, I started writing a little more from that point of view. And if I didn't bring it up to you, you might not really even know it.
Yeah,
But
well, it's so much needed, it's really incredible. I want you to be able to plug your social media, tell everyone where we can find you and download you. And we're going to roll
sure.
out with your song called Out in the Cold. So let us
Oh, that's
know.
a good one. Okay, so we we have GrimmJack.com, which is that's our whole website. We are on GrimmJack NYC. GrimmJack is the YouTube channel, GrimmJack. I'm looking at it right now. You got LinkedIn. We're on Reverb Nation, Spotify, iTunes, Apple. I think if you Google us, it's the spelling. So anybody that's listening and is a little, curious, it's GRIMM space JACK. Grimm with two M's, Jack, two words, two M's. And 40 years of stuff are there. So if you're into 80s type music, you see the real deal from us playing in 1985. It's a trip down memory lane. So
This is so great.
enjoy it, man.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
been
it's
a
a
pleasure
pleasure.
having you on, Billy. I love you. You're so great.
Yeah.
And do you have any
I can't
gigs
wait to see you
coming up?
live again.
I know.
You know
Any
what?
gigs?
We have something that's going to be in a studio-based environment, and we're going to be playing the new stuff off this next record that's going to be coming out. So stuff that we've never even played, that has never been heard live, with some of the stuff that is released off Skullduggery and Snake Oil and Skullduggery. So that's going to be all on my Facebook page. You could find me, Billy Kohout, Facebook, and there's always band stuff up there. And it's a little difficult to play here on Long Island. The original rock and roll scene is kind of scarce. So
Changing, yeah.
we're
Wow.
yeah, we're trying to do it a little differently just to keep it available.
Sure.
I think there's enough people that still want to hear it.
That's right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. We're going to roll out with Out in the Cold by GrimmJack. Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Kat.